I'm Renee from the Pierce Conservation District, and if you're not familiar with what districts are and how we started, we were established after the Dust Bowl to prevent man-made agricultural natural disasters from occurring. So, the soil was left bare and it blew away, and we definitely want to prevent that. And there's pretty much a district in every county in the U.S. And we focus on our natural resource concerns. So in Pierce County here, it's all about water quality, keeping the water clean, keeping the soil and nutrients out of the water. So a lot of the things that we recommend have that in mind, but it also has the added benefits of how to have more grass, less mud, what to do with your manure so you don't have a giant manure pile on your livestock operation. So one of the other things we really recommend is not disturbing the ground as much as possible. So a couple of years ago we purchased a no-till seed drill, and we loan that out to producers. They just have to pay for its transportation, and it's a way to put seed in the ground where you want it, at the depth you want it. So just briefly, the main benefits of using a no-till drill: definitely going to save on fuel because you're not having to work the ground and then come back and roll it and then do your seeding. This is a one-pass operation, really. So obviously you're going to save a lot of time. Carbon sequestration is another benefit, because when you turn over the soil, the carbon is released into the atmosphere. So it's keeping it in the ground. And it's very important out here, as Don can tell you in a little bit, you're not going to bring up rocks because you're not plowing and disking, which I don't even know if that would be possible out here with all the rocks that he has. Definitely won't be wasting seed because you're putting it at the depth you want. You're not just broadcasting it for the birds to eat. So your pastures can be grazed sooner after you're doing a renovation with a seed drill, because generally if you completely work the ground and the seed comes up, you have to be very cautious that the roots are established enough that the animals aren't just going to pull them out of the ground. And the way you do that is through the pull test. You can pull it out of the ground, and your animals are going to be able to do that. So usually what we recommend is, if that's happening, you test it, you go out and mow it. That's going to get the roots going down further, and then you do the pull test again. But if you're seeding into an established pasture, usually you can get out there earlier, because when they're biting the grass, they're not just going to be biting that one plant that was seeded. There's going to be biting another established plant next to it. So less likely that they're going to pull things out of the ground. Like I said, other than carbon being released into the atmosphere, tillage is detrimental to the soil structure. It breaks up that soil structure, so it affects the water holding capacity, and definitely makes the soil more likely to erode if you're not doing the right practices when you're doing your renovation. And also, tillage is disruptive to soil microorganisms. Their habitat gets disturbed because they have that symbiotic relationship with the roots in the soil. Those get broken up with tillage. And then tillage also results in a breakdown of organic matter. So you're losing that, and that holds a lot of moisture in the soil. And when you're tilling, you're bringing up weed seeds. So you're more likely to have weeds growing out there with your grasses. So definitely using no-till or reduced till can be a tool for increasing the capacity of the soil to function optimally and reduce the need for tillage. So healthy soils are going to allow water to infiltrate, retain and cycle nutrients and carbon, regenerate pest and disease population, and then also save you time and money. So that's why we recommend it. And then Don is going to tell you what he's done on the property here that he leases, kind of his the way he came about, he was one of the people that was really encouraging us to buy a no-till drill several years ago.
Well, thank you, Renee, and thank you to Pierce County Conservation District for holding this workshop this morning on a beautiful day, by the way. It's a perfect day for us to kind of learn a little bit about our own experiences, and I think that's really the best way to really inform ourselves. What I thought I would do is maybe talk about my role here and my goal on this particular farm. I'll talk a little bit about my production, what's happened on my production side of the farm, a little bit about the services I've used to hopefully improve yields, because that's really, for me, it was all about yields. And converting a pasture basically into a hay ground is something else. And then to talk about my experience with a no-till seeder, because Renee gave you, I think, a good example of how valuable the seeder is to, I think, all of us that use it. But I will tell you, it was a game changer for me, and it just made everything very different. It solved a huge problem for us. So on the first item, my role and my goal for this farm, the actual owner, it was interesting. About 15 years ago, their goal, they called me up and said, can you do some fire cuts, because we had a prairie fire out here. And by the way, just so you know, you see those trees way over there with the house over there? That's where I live. So I was very interested in trying to control the fire threat, because cattle had been on here, her father had passed away, and she wasn't interested in raising cattle anymore. And so I said, okay, I'll come over here and I'll cut with my brush hog a few, fire lanes and whatnot after we'd had this fire. And because there's a barn way down there, you can barely see it. But nonetheless, I got over here and I said, oh my God, why am I cutting fire lane? Why isn't somebody using this property in a more productive way? Because it's a beautiful piece. So her expectation, the owner, is really fire management, so that it doesn't burn the place down in terms of the old barn. My goal was, and has been, is, well, can we improve the yields on this and make it useful for me to basically maintain the fire threat by cutting it every year. So those are kind of the goals. And my role really over the years has been, as a lessee, just to enjoy it. Because I was born and raised on a farm in South Dakota. So I've got, some of us are kind of crazy that way. I don't know why it is, but we just love the land, and that's kind of where I come from, and I wanted to improve it. On the production side, I was looking at my numbers, and I didn't keep very good records when I first started. And by the way, switching over to actual production of hay, even though I've been involved for about 15 years, the first 5 years I didn't really do much, and I decided about maybe 7 years ago, somewhere in that range, I said, well, I got to get serious about doing something here, because I saw a huge opportunity. And by the way, what you see here is, just imagine pretty much what you see here along this side of the road was pretty much what you saw here through this, except the blackberry and and all the other weeds that you can possibly imagine. So I cleared it all up. It took me about 2-3 years, and then I had a problem with rocks because it's very rocky soil here. So I spent about a year picking up rocks. And last year was the best year I had. We got a little over 5,000 bales off this property, and that was the highlight. And I think everybody pretty well had a great year on hay. I mean, it was exceptional, and had not. I trace it to the water, the amount of water and the rain that we got. That was phenomenal, but that was the biggest year. Normally, what I've been getting off of this property is somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 bales. They're small bales, 55 pounds. So that's pretty much what we're doing, is a local hay for horses.
So you said you didn't keep good records, but can you remember, how much your production has increased since you've started making improvements?
The part of the issue I have, and Renee, the reason I have a real difficult time is this big field. When I first started, I didn't do anything to it. I just cut fire. So, but I would say on a comparable basis, I think my production has increased with the seeding, which I'll talk a little bit more about because I think that's probably some of your biggest interest. With the seeding, I'd say I've improved it on the basis of I'd say probably 25 to 30% on my yield. Comparable acreage is comparable acreage. Soil tests. I really highly recommend that. For a couple of years when I was starting out, I didn't do any soil tests. And I was talking to the guy I work with, and well, we'll just get this, nitrogen, green it up. And anyway, soil tests are really critical. I do them every year. But testing is really important.
When do you do your testing, in the fall? Or?
Oh, I usually do my testing in the wintertime. Usually, isn't that when?
Yeah, I mean,
you can probably do it any time after
yeah,
after
it's
harvest.
good to do it once you start doing it. Do it at the same time of year every time. So
I try to do it in January because I'm fertilizing probably in March, so I do it in January. So, well, you're going to be going. Your next workshop is with the no-till seeder in the demonstration, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. I've already indicated it was a game changer for us. Because it solves a huge problem. And my theory was, when I looked at the soil and the amount of rocks and the poor nature of it, the no-till seeder was just a godsend for us because it allowed me to change what it is that you're looking at here today. I seed in the spring and the fall. One of the best results I had, though, was recently was in the spring. But you can do it either way. I think I used this in the fall. After you first got it, it was in the fall.
yeah.
So I would recommend you kind of pick and choose and just do it.
You're doing it every year consistently? Or
No, I haven't done it. I didn't do it last fall or this spring. I am going to do it this fall because there's some spots here which gets me to, if there isn't anything that you want to be very careful of, besides the rate of seed, the depth of the seed. Because I will suggest to you, a mistake I made is, I thought I had it right, but you will see there's a lot of dips and mounds, and my theory now that I'm using, and in fact the last field I used it on, I set it to where it was about 1/4 of an inch into the soil. And that's the best way because I was too deep. And if you get it too deep and you're in a no-till situation, you will not see the seed.
Yeah.
It will not come up. You're just wasting your time. In fact, I'm convinced now you're better off, even where you got dips and stuff like that. Let the seed get on top of it rather than getting it too deep. At least you got a chance to germinate.
Yeah, I used the drill twice at my house, and I followed directions, set it how it's supposed to be. The first time, I hardly saw anything, so I erred on the side of more shallow than the recommendation, and I did it again this last fall, and you can see stripes out there of the grass. It made a huge difference, I think.
And what we're standing in here in this field is a field that I reseeded. It was one of the first fields that I reseeded it with orchard as well as rye, and I would say that the orchard took a lot better than the rye for whatever reason. I also can suggest to you that this is the field where I think I lost probably 3/4 of my seed because I was too deep, and it was really frustrating. You can see kind of how blotchy this is. And part of it, I think, is because I was too deep. But this is probably a good example of how I change the yields that I'm getting off of these fields. Because this will be probably one of my better fields. And particularly as you go over the hill here, you'll see, of course, obviously the soil conditions change as we get closer. That's a creek, Muck Creek. and the soil condition changes, and as that changes, the yields change. But again, I thought for purposes of saying and showing you kind of the changes that have occurred prior to my planning here, this was basically a prairie fescue, very, very short, very short. So, but that's the change, that's the yield change that I've been getting, and I'm still not done because I think that these fields can do better if I can get a combination of manure, and someday if I can afford the lime, maybe.
Right.
But I don't think that's in the near future because it's so expensive for me.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that how lime is really beneficial is, so, with all the rain we get, the bases in the soils get washed out. So over time, your soil gets more acidic. But the more productive grasses, like this prairie grass that Don's talking about, it can survive, a nuclear blast, basically. It's going to live on nothing. But the more productive grasses really need to live in a neutral pH, and they can't physically take up as many nutrients if they're in acidic soil. So you might be putting nutrients out here, but they aren't utilizing all of them. So really, if you can, if you want to know where to start, or if you can only afford one or the other, I'd always recommend liming first, because then, they can take advantage of the nutrients that are already in the soil and that sort of thing.
Is there anything that works as lime that's cheaper? Like, can I put a bunch of chickens on my...
Well, I went the cheap route when we bought our property. So, you want to use like ag lime, that sort of thing, but we use hydrated lime, which is like the cheapest, but also the nastiest thing. You don't want to get it on your skin. You can't let your animals out there until it's washed in. Our dog followed us around when we were liming, didn't even think about it, burned his feet. Yeah, so it's nasty stuff, but it is probably a third of the price. So, but I would definitely put it out in the fall and keep your animals off of it until it really gets washed off the grass.
The other thing what's interesting is you can actually see the drill line here if you look closely, how it took. You can see the straight line. It tells you the changes that's occurring. And yeah, I just wish I would have been a little bit smarter when we first started out.
Well, one thing too, I used to be skeptical of this. You read that some plants, especially like tall fescue, take a while to establish. And they really do take 2 years to really come on, because I seeded 2 years ago and this didn't come on that well, and really now this spring I'm seeing the plants that I seeded 2 years ago.
Well, that's my hope. I guess that's I'm hoping that'll occur, but also though the mere fact that I've learned a lot, and I plan on reseeding some of this fall.
When did you do this one?
Oh, this one was probably about, this one had to have been 3 years ago. When did you get the seeder?
I think you're right. I think
3
it
years
was
ago.
2018, maybe early 2019.
Yeah.
Is there a better time to seed, or can you really just seed any time since it's a seed drill?
Well, two things on that is, first of all, because this is a hayfield, you're either going to be doing it in the fall,
Right.
or you're going to be doing it in the spring.
Right.
And those two periods of time, you got plenty of moisture usually occurring. And so those are the two times, because at any other time, you wouldn't want to be doing it now.
It's
I
too
don't want to do
late,
it now,
right,
it's
yeah.
too late.
Usually, we've got a reference in the packet you guys are going to get. WSU Extension has a really good renovation guide. It talks about, no-till or traditional, or, using livestock, whatever. And their rule of thumb is not after May 1st. And I've found in the fall, they say could be any time, August, September. But I think with a no-till drill, you're also, the seeds you're putting out there are competing against what's already there. Or actually, it's really vice versa. What's already there is going to outcompete your new little seedlings. So at my place, I really timed it well. I think this year I did it right around Labor Day weekend, when everything else was stressed and kind of the low point before we started to get rain and it started to take off again, it really allowed the new stuff to really come on before the existing grass started to regrow with the rain. So I mean, I could really see the stripes of green of the new stuff was actually taller than the existing grass.
And then would you do a lime application the same time that you're seeding, or would
You could time that. Yeah, you don't want to time your liming and any nitrogen application at the same time, because if you put on lime and then nitrogen too soon, it'll volatilize the nitrogen into the air, so more climate change. So you definitely want to time those at least a week apart. So put on your nitrogen, wait a week, put on your lime, that sort of thing.
So in relation to when you seed, it doesn't necessarily matter.
No.
Is there anything that works as lime that's cheaper? Like, can I put a bunch of chickens on my?
Well, I went the cheap route when we bought our property. So, you want to use like ag lime, that sort of thing, but we use hydrated lime, which is like the cheapest, but also the nastiest thing. You don't want to get it on your skin. You can't let your animals out there until it's washed in. Our dog followed us around when we were liming, didn't even think about it, burned his feet. Yeah, so it's nasty stuff, but it is probably a third of the price. So, but I would definitely put it out in the fall and keep your animals off of it until it really gets washed off the grass.
The other thing what's interesting is you can actually see the drill line here if you look closely, how it took. You can see the straight line. It tells you the changes that's occurring. And yeah, I just wish I would have been a little bit smarter when we first started out.
Well, one thing too, I used to be skeptical of this. You read that some plants, especially like tall fescue, take a while to establish. And they really do take 2 years to really come on, because I seeded 2 years ago and this didn't come on that well, and really now this spring I'm seeing the plants that I seeded 2 years ago.
Well, that's my hope. I guess that's I'm hoping that'll occur, but also though the mere fact that I've learned a lot, and I plan on reseeding some of this this fall.
When did you do this one?
Oh, this one was probably about, this one had to have been 3 years ago. When did you get the cedar?
I think you're right. I think
3
it
years
was
ago.
2018, maybe early 2019.
Yeah.
Is there a better time to seed, or can you really just seed any time since it's the seed drill?
Well, two things on that is, first of all, because this is a hayfield, you're either going to be doing it in the fall,
Right.
or you're going to be doing it in the spring.
Right.
And those two periods of time, you got plenty of moisture usually occurring. And so those are the two times, because at any other time, you wouldn't want to be doing it now.
Yeah, it's
I don't
too
want to do
late,
it now,
right,
it's
yeah.
too late.
Usually, we've got a reference in the packet you guys are going to get. WSU Extension has a really good renovation guide. It talks about no-till or traditional, or using livestock, whatever. And their rule of thumb is not after May 1st. And I've found in the fall, they say could be any time, August, September. But I think with a no-till drill, you're also, the seeds you're putting out there are competing against what's already there. Or actually, it's really vice versa. What's already there is going to outcompete your new little seedlings. So at my place, I really timed it well. I think this year I did it right around Labor Day weekend, when everything else was stressed and kind of the low point before we started to get rain and it started to take off again. It really allowed the new stuff to really come on before the existing grass started to regrow with the rain. So I mean, I could really see the stripes of green of the new stuff is actually taller than the existing grass.
And then would you do a lime application the same time that you're seeding, or would
You could time that. Yeah, you don't want to time your liming and any nitrogen application at the same time, because if you put on lime and then nitrogen too soon, it'll volatilize the nitrogen into the air, so more climate change. So you definitely want to time those at least a week apart. So put on your nitrogen, wait a week, put on your lime, that sort of thing.
So in relation to when you seed, it doesn't necessarily matter.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we're rephasing the drill cylinders by lifting to the maximum height and then hold for 10 seconds. Okay, so then remove transport locks. Note the upside down position of the locks. Remember to put the locks back on in this orientation to avoid damage to the cylinder stops. These are the transport locks, which looks like they
Oh, I see.
That's just for towing
Yeah,
it.
when you're towing it, so that.
Okay, so then it's lower the drill completely. Okay, so when you schedule this with Jennings, they'll ask you how tall your drawbar height is, because the measurement between the ground and the bottom of the frame tube should be 24 3/4 inches. So and that is here. This frame here is to be 24 3/4 inches, and if it's not, you got to come to this side. We had a monkey around with us at our place. Okay, so this is the cylinder stop plate.
Yeah.
And this is really what's going to direct how
That's
deep
what, was it Bob, the first guy?
Don. Yeah,
he said
so
that's the key mechanism. And this height adjustment, you just loosen up these 1/2 inches and
yep,
half
we
inch
did
bolt.
have a tool in there.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's there anymore, but that's how you do it. You got to readjust this guy.
Hmm.
So what you want is, see how this is the stop?
Yeah.
It should be right there. And this is 24 3/4. Are we measuring this, or we're not going to do it?
No, because I mean Jennings will set it up for you when they come out. They'll have it adjusted already for the height of your drawbar. So if you just give them the measurement from the ground to the bottom of your drawbar,
They'll have it all
they'll
set.
set it up. Yeah, when they drop it off, it should be ready to go.
So then you need to check that it's running at level, so that the tongue and the seed box should be level. Just going to eyeball it for demonstration purposes. Drill will come adjusted run on level by submitting a tractor drawbar height. Okay, and then adjust the seed box level using the turnbuckle to level the seed box separate from the tongue.
And I never had to do that because it was always already level. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
and
had
the way
to
it
do that.
now we didn't. This is the turnbuckle here, and we've got. In case you don't
So if it was
have your
on
thing,
the-
here's all the instructions in here. And the toolbox has some different adapters. Okay. Adjust the double disc openers so your seed is placed at the proper depth. This is done via the T-handles on the press wheel.
So this is going to be really what I think is the most critical part. It's these handles here. So there's one on each drill section, and every one of those is a 1/4 inch.
Yep. So all the way forward is the shallowest position, all the way back is the deepest.
So this is the shallowest position.
Yep.
That's 1/4 inch, half.
That would be at 0.
3/4.
Yeah,
Well, that's 0.
Yep, the first one's 0,
Okay. So
and then the next one back would be a 1/4.
1/4.
yeah, each increment will adjust the depth by about a 1/4 inch, or walking the handle side to side will adjust the depth by about 1/8 of an inch.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. See how it's.
Yeah.
So then, set the initial seed rate handle. Set the main box seed rate handle to the setting corresponding to your desired rate. So in this one, we're doing 47 as our example, doing 60 pounds per acre of barley. Okay, so the gearbox is this one.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep. So depending on your seed type, it'll tell you which gearbox. So here's an example of alfalfa, bahia, barley. So we were doing tell you want to be on the gear box 2. So it's here. Okay. So then it says, set the main box seed right handle setting course. Check. Loosen wing nut under the handle. It's this guy over here. So we gotta go to the other side. This is the actual seed rate.
Oh, that's your seed rate adjustment right there.
Yep. So the way you can tell if you want 60 pounds per acre of barley, right? You look at 60.
Well, it's set on 45 right
And
now.
if you go on drive type 2, it's telling you seeding rate at pounds per acre. So if you want,
79.
yep, 60, then you actually put
Okay,
in
not
79. So what you need to do is move indicator to about 10 higher than desired from the seed rate chart.
And then back.
You go over 10 and then back.
Oh.
Okay, so then you engage the lockout hub and seed away.
Something you don't want to forget. You got to just pull this out and then turn.
That is what's releasing the seed.
This is what actually is making it wheel driven now.
Oh, I see.
Otherwise, it's for
Got
transport.
it,
So
got it,
E and
I
G
see.
for engage.
So now it's engaged.
Yep.
It's going to drive the mechanism.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the way to get up to the boxes is with the foot, the cleat. So then you fill your seed.
Why are there 2 boxes?
So for different size
You can have 2
seeds.
different sizes.
Yes. So I use the one in the back where it says native grass on
Oh, I
it
see.
because we were seeding with grass. If you were doing corn or something, you would use the front box.
Yeah, and it'll tell you in the manual which ones you need to use. So it's got little wheels in here, and there's actually a fill. Where's the indicator that you can glance back?
Oh, right
when
here.
you're
It's up here in
driving? Yeah,
front.
that's right. Tell you if you're getting low or
Empty,
not.
full.
Yeah.
And then when you clean this out before you pick up with Jennings, you definitely do not use water on this thing. You
Just
gotta,
blower?
yeah, use a
We just
blower.
use a shop vac.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so then when it's for the winter time, these guys are pulled out, so they put these back together. So basically, how this thing works is the discs are cutting slits, and then the tubes are dropping your seed in, and then the press wheels are pressing the soil back together. So 2 really critical things to remember are don't back up, because then your discs are going to get clogged with dirt, and you're going to have to get down there with a screwdriver and dig it out. I've heard people say that. And you've got to pull it out of the ground when you make turns.
So
You can do
Through the
like,
hydraulic mechanism.
yeah,
Pull it up.
you can do gradual, real gradual, but I just wouldn't. So we always just kind of like you're mowing hay. We just back and forth with it and just pick it up at the end.
right, and what's cool is it'll stop, drop, and seed.
When you pick it up.
Yep. When you pick it up. So when you're done, set the seed cup doors to 1, and that'll help clean everything out. Okay.
And I think they recommend, is it like a 50 horsepower
At
tractor?
least the 40.
40?
I got a 53 horsepower.
You're
the one
good.
thing is I got my hydraulics are up front, so.
Right, that's what the extra
Okay.
posts are for, to get you up there.
Okay. Guys that are putting in big fields of corn and sunflowers, they're using something like this. Oh yeah, the big right.
Yeah, so the way to check your seed, which I did when I first used it, just go back and paper in there and really feel how
And I don't know what those are all for.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. Pretty cool piece of equipment, actually. I mean, it does get you out of using everything.
Right.
Yeah, it does a nice job. There's no doubt. This grass is a little tall, so maybe a little hard.
Oh man, it sliced right through.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, we got down to the furrows.
And I had seeded this field last year also because this was just worse than the field we had up there, and you can see it now.
That's beautiful. Okay.
What is that? 6 feet across?
Yeah, 6 feet working with. So I think it's 8 with the wheels. We thought about, originally our plan was to put it on a trailer, but you know, who's going to be able to get it up and down off of there? So Jennings
lot of work.
transports it with a truck. They just drive on the highway.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Renee. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for showing us your
You bet.